is beyond the 2 years or the 3 years that we offer our PAYGO solution, we are enabling customers to continue enjoying the support, the technical support that we give as Divis and Chatleaf by now reducing their, by allowing them to pay for that also on a pay-as-you-go model, such that they're able to pay solutions, they're able to pay for the maintenance even after the 2 years that they finish paying, but still be able to get the support, because all they need is this pump to continue working. And something that Tilak mentioned, which is really been another another nightmare for us, is that in some hard to reach areas, there's a problem of connectivity. Now, as you probably all know, the collateral for PAYGO is the utility that the customer gets out of that equipment. So there is a necessity to be able to monitor the usage of that utility. And what that means is the system, the pump, should be able to communicate back to the supplier and say, yes, today I'm working, I have worked for 2 hours, I've worked for 10 hours, and the service provider, the supplier like Divis and Chatleaf should be able to say, lock the solution if the customer has not been able to pay. And so in areas where we don't have connectivity, what that means is the system is not able to communicate effectively, neither can the client be able to download the units of pumping, how we call them, in order for them to continue using the equipment. So this is a very big prerequisite, even in how we deploy our solutions today, that we have to ensure that in the local area where we're deploying the solution, there is adequate connectivity to allow these pumps to communicate. And this is a barrier for some areas. And so this is something that is also contributing as a big challenge to implementing PAYGO solar irrigation technologies in the hard to reach semi-arid and arid areas.
Right. Thank you so much, Brian. That was very, very comprehensive. And I see that questions are coming in on the chat. So I'm really happy about that. Please continue to share them, and even on the Q&A platform. And so then Brian has just given us an overview of the why behind the PAYGO solution, how it works, some of the challenges that it's facing. And so then I want to turn to Josephat, who was leading implementation of the PAYGO solution and piloting it within an arid and semi-arid county where we've had it a bit difficult to deploy. So Josephat, could you please take us through how Catholic Relief Services under the Rapid Plus program supported Divis to pilot the pay-as-you-go model? What were your experiences on the ground? What were the challenges? What were the highlights? Over to you, Josephat.
Yeah, thank you so much, June. And I'm so much excited with the discussions. And personally, I'm also learning a lot. Allow me to start by saying the following. As the Rapid Plus project, our focus is on promoting sustainable and resilient multi-use water systems. And for us to achieve that, we focus to support uptake of water efficient irrigation solutions, considering that we are operating in a context where water is really scarce. So I think the justice for us to serve these communities is to really push and lobby for solar powered irrigation solutions. So for us again to achieve this, market system development is one of our key pillars, and therefore we work very closely to support private sector development for purpose of ensuring that we are able to streamline actors' performances and interrelationships for purposes of ensuring that different actors in the market ecosystem are able to get rewarded accordingly. Now, in terms of us as a project, as CRS in Isiolo County, what we did was to, of course, have a partnership, a collaboration with Divis and Chatleaf. Having listened to their model, we were convinced that this could be a game changer to the communities here in Isiolo County. So some of the steps that we took for us to ensure that we were in a position to successfully roll out the model was to first support sensitization and awareness creation. And there we started with the County Department of Agriculture, because in Kenya, agriculture is a default function. So it was therefore important to ensure that the extension officers of the county government understands this model, so that even as we go down to the communities, the different groups that we were looking at, the officers already have the capacities enhanced. Again, we went ahead to support mapping of these groups, and mapping was followed by vetting process, because with deficient short leaf, there was an eligibility criteria. So some of the parameters that a farmer needed to satisfy for him or her to be able to be considered for this particular model. So we were able to have a comprehensive audit vetting process that was done in collaboration with David and Shatleaf, and also the county government. And by the end of the day, we were in a position to identify a certain number of farmers who were then prioritized to be supported in this particular model. After the vetting process, we went ahead to have effective engagements with these farmer groups or individual farmers, because when June was also giving us a background in terms of some of the limitations, one key one to note is the access to this information. So we felt it was important for us to ensure that we really unpack the model so that the farmers could really understand what it entails, understand the obligations, and what they are really needed to do at the end of the day to ensure that they're able to meet their obligations. Now, when we finalized on the list of the farmers, as a program, we are trying to shift or transition from the traditional approaches, which I know all of us are really much aware of. For many decades, we have been seeing a lot of investments, which basically goes directly to procure the items and get distributed to the communities, like 100% free of cost. So now for us, we are trying to ensure that at which particular point can the farmer be able to invest in it for purposes of ensuring that we have the ownership of this equipment, because where there is ownership, then comes sustainability. So for us now to have a seamless process in terms of that shift, we came into support farmer in deposit. Then 80% is paid by the farmer for a period of 2 months in monthly installments. So we processed the payments for the farmers, and when the payment process was completed, then we had a technical team from Division Shatleaf who came in now to do the installation. And it doesn't just end at installation. We went ahead to ensure that we are conducting routine monitoring and technical backstopping to ensure that we are listening to the farmers and taking key considerations on any concerns that are able to raise. We also took advantage of the platform to create awareness, disseminate the information, disseminate the technology among us, the different farmer groups and individual farmers within the Isiolo County. So we were able to plan for forums where we brought on board different farmers, different groups. Again, to our advantage, we participated in a farmers field day for purpose of ensuring that every member of the community understands the importance of embracing solar-powered irrigation solutions. And I can attest that this has been a big success on our side. And I know participants in this call will also bear me witness in terms of the cost burden in running the petrol-powered engines. So when you listen to the stories of now the farmers have benefited from this technology, they have really realized significant reduction in their operating expenses. And at the end of the day, for a farmer, we'll want to see reduction in cost of production while we are in a position to maximize the output, because output will then translate into the profits or the gross margins for the farmers. And number two is in terms of it is a gender-friendly initiative. It is really easy for them to operate, whether women, whether men, whether youth, they are really in a position to operate the system. So again, in addition, we are also very happy because the county government has been on the lead on this. And we are starting to see their influence in terms of priorities by the county government and even priorities by the different stakeholders. I'm happy to report that this month there was an installation that was done, and that was as a result of the county government referring or influencing the decisions of some other stakeholders to ensure that we prioritize solar-powered irrigation solutions, and not only solar-powered irrigation solutions, but influencing investments by the farmers to acquire these groundbreaking technologies. And for now, it's a good progress, and of course, challenges have been mentioned by Brian, and there's been a lot of effort to ensure that we are addressing those particular challenges, which are technical in nature. And in the part of us as implementing partner in Isiolo County, key to note is of course, now the challenges of transitioning I've mentioned in terms of moving away from the traditional approaches now to towards the market system development recommendations. Number two is in terms of variability in terms of produce prices in the market. Remember, we're trying to ensure that the farmers are using proceeds to pay for the pump. Therefore, there has been a bit of challenges in terms of trying to ensure that the proceeds are aligning to the payments at the end of every month. And that is the reason now we are trying to ensure that we are having an holistic approach where we are not only dealing with a solar-powered irrigation solution, but we are also ensuring that we support the farmer to understand the market needs so that the production by different farmers is for the market, not to the market, so that they know at which cycles they can be able to produce and earn more. Over to you, June. Thank you.
Thank you for that example from the ground. We also have a few questions on the chat for you. You could just take a look, but we'll definitely get around to them. Thank you so much, Josephat. So I'd just like to take it back to Tilak. So we've understood the universe of financial options for smallholder farmers. We've gone deep into the pay-as-you-go system developed by Davis, and we've seen a practical application of it on the ground in Isiolo. The next step would be that this has been in the pilot stage for a while, and we would like to understand what are the options for scaling it up. How can pay-go providers scale their services while maintaining affordability and sustainability?
Thank you, June. And thank you. Few relevant insights from, and then thank you, Brian and Josephat, for highlighting. I think it where the scale relates to what degree you're serving the smallholder. I think that's just one aspect to bear in mind, and how effectively and efficiently you're serving their needs. Just to kind of take it back to a little bit about how that can be implemented and sort of at sort of large volumes as well. There's a couple of sort of insights that we've picked up along the way as well as we kind of scale our initiative with Davis and Shirtlift as well. The first is just sort of around the value proposition. Sort of, have you got your sort of that element of things right? Does the customer, does the smallholder see value in what you're proposing? We've noticed there's often two key mechanisms that smallholders sort of resonate with early on. One's a cost saving. So when you look at a solar water pump system in relation to an incumbent or without having a solution, there's that immediate cost saving that can be quantified. And the other is the investment mechanism. So as a productive use asset, it has the potential to improve yields and then agricultural incomes down the line. I think we've Brian and I, we spent a lot of time early days trying to unpack sort of how does this become relevant as you start growing your customer base. And I think this really sets up a key approach when it comes to scaling not only the pay-as-you-go model, but I think this applies to many other mechanisms and industries. And that's understanding the customer, the segmentation as well. So at any step of the way, I think we've spoken about this sort of over the course of the session already, that sort of no smallholding is no two smallholdings are the same. So I think very early on, if you're able to build customer personas, you can start building that picture of what that portfolio and customer base looks like at scale. I'll also mention another nuance of the pay-as-you-go model that, again, as it relates to offering the best solution for smallholders and customers, and this is also not only the system itself, but the repayments, like the modality of that. And this has emerged quite a bit fairly recently. But I think there's also an element of fine-tuning the repayment model to suit smallholder needs. So we are probably most familiar with the time-based, so pay X amount of pay X cents to access the system for a day. Again, that's quite common not only in productive use systems, but more broadly. There's also consumption based, so you buy units of energy. So again, this suits smallholders who have sort of seasonal needs. But then on the flip side, throughout any of the systems, what you're essentially, or repayment mechanisms, you're constantly trying to balance affordability and utility for the customer with commercial viability, because the two together improves your ability to serve a wider customer base, but your existing smallholders as well. So I think it's a constant analysis and a fine-tuning exercise, and customer segmentation done early can really set that up to be done well. I've mentioned hybrid as well, so that's the model that we're currently implementing, where there is a fixed price element to access the system and services, and then consumption based on top of that, where a smallholder can purchase units to utilize with the pump. And again, there's sort of benefits and risks to each from both the perspective of the customer, the smallholder. So I think it's important to, again, spend that time quite early with smallholders to understand which system would be, or payment mechanism would be most appropriate and applicable to them. As Josephat and Brian both highlighted, it's fully sort of repayments are based on yields and the outputs of the agricultural cycle. So very important to not only make sure timing, but value, volume, all of these elements of the pricing model are quite well aligned with agricultural cycles and smallholder needs. So just to mention, there are, I know pay-as-you-go is quite broad in itself, but just to mention, there are a couple of nuances where you can use to really fine-tune. And Audrey, if I could have the next slide, please. And just to get sort of even sort of one layer deeper, it's there's several elements of the pay-as-you-go model, and again, a lot of scaling, but also getting the pricing right for customers and utility right will be a function or a variable of getting these elements of the pay-as-you-go model right. So the initial deposit, which is very important, which is simultaneously sort of one of the strongest indicators of credit worthiness, but also the main consideration for a smallholder. So I think there's definitely a lot of scope to quite early on understand what the incumbent and alternative solutions are, and to ensure that you're not pricing smallholders out, that the offer remains affordable, but also you are utilizing it as an indicator of customer credit worthiness. Then I think here I've split out the ongoing repayment elements closer. So this is closer to the hybrid model, where you have a fixed price element standing and then a variable element based on the actual use. And again, this works quite well where each smallholder will have varying needs. And it's quite important to understand what those needs are, again, at scale that fits into customer segmentation, but also that you're able to really understand and serve individual smallholders based on their needs, but also sort of after the repayment cycle is complete, which is the last one, the tenure. Again, very important, because this simultaneously translates to having a customer affordability, but also business processes, especially as you scale, and many pay-as-you-go companies have access to a capital facility, so a working capital facility or lending facility that also needs repayment. So again, it's a combination of ensuring that both are aligned, that you have a strong commercial platform to serve a growing smallholder base. And I think I've touched on a couple of things, but again, there's a couple of tools and approaches that I've found over the years to be quite relevant and important. The customer personas and segmentation, I've mentioned, they're important from day one, but especially when it comes to scaling and you are sort of in your portfolio are smallholders, you know, of great numbers, each with individual needs. I think being able to articulate what those are begins from day one and begins from the customer persona. So I would highly encourage, you know, tools to be deployed like that quite early on. Of course, there's a major element of balance sheet management, which is again a constant balance between serving the customer and ensuring your commercial platform remains strong. And there's a couple more notes in there, but I'll just, in the interest of time, I'll run through. Then there's, of course, economies of scale and scope. So how are you utilizing your platform? I think when it comes to scaling, these become quite important. Brian mentioned we were sort of in certain regions where we found sort of quite hard to reach. I think having sort of someone who's present in regions like that, who can be part of the sales efforts, but also technical, you know, first line of response, that's economies of scope. So you are also utilizing an existing sort of operations to really maximize the impact you can have. So I think that also comes in quite early, where you are utilizing that. Again, this is not unique to Pego in any way, but I think just standard business process optimization, you know, good use. What does your P&L look like? How effectively are you utilizing resources, distribution? What's your route to customers? I think all of these analyses done quite early on. I know Davison Shirtliff is very well established and has a range of, you know, channels to reach customers through distributors, direct, as well in the field, but also showroom. So I think it's important as well to understand where to play from that perspective, so you can most effectively utilize resources. So that's one of the sort of standard business processes, which similarly the last one, operational efficiency, and that relates to capital as well. So there's quite a few sources of capital, but how are you deploying and utilizing that effectively? Again, it translates back to serving the customers in very well, but in a very effective way. So I've run through a lot. I'll pause there. Just I may have gone over time. Apologies for that, but I hope that was a good summary. But yes, there's a lot there, but I think it's important for organizations looking to scale to understand sort of where to play, but also I think it's a combination of once you've achieved technical fit, you know, your commercial viability is constantly always evolving. It's important to do that, but also from a demand side, have you served your customer? I think you're constantly asking yourself questions in those thematic areas, and yeah, I think that's effective and important to do as you scale.
Thank you so much, Tilak. I think we are okay with time, so thank you for covering those areas. And I think it's very useful to speak to maybe entities that are interested in this, you know, development practitioners, other organizations, and I think it's useful to make sure that they have an idea of how to expand their efforts. And so I want to move to the questions from the audience. We have quite a number of questions that have come in on the chat. Thank you so much to the panel for attempting to answer some of them on the fly. But we'll start with some that are unanswered. And I think I've lumped them up a little bit. So Tilak, I'll be turning to you first. We have a question from Susan Jeru, who asks how we can get the information to partner with investors or information with opportunities to investors. So where can you get the information on investment opportunities? I think being a financial practitioner, that's something that you could look to. The second question that I just wanted you to answer, because it's related, we have Hosea Kandago, who is talking about, and I think you had even ticked this, in the past we see compelling evidence to transition to regenerative food systems. This breakaway is from single limited measure of agricultural productivity, for example, the yield, to broader elements like biodiversity, soil health, water use, and social cultural aspects. So how best can this be financed? Are there any innovations or existing financial instruments or mechanisms that can help us to achieve the need of the current and future climate change? I think that's quite useful. So maybe you can take those two first, and then I'll switch to Brian and Josephat.
Sure, thank you, June. Thank you for the questions. I think in terms of where it's highly, it relates quite strongly to sort of the project specifics, the scale of the opportunity, because the size of funds itself sort of influences where you might look for investment. I would say the best sort of approach would be look at sort of thematic investment groups. So it could be funds, it could be multilaterals, it could be government grants, and it could be private foundations as well that usually deploy capital with a certain impact or theme in mind. So I would say that's probably the most effective way. And because a lot of the capital is kind of combined to increase its impact, it will become quite clear sort of where the sources of fundings are, funding is, and as well what stage. There's usually sort of a calendar of events that each funder will have in terms of when they open calls for funding grants, be it blended finance. So my approach would be to look at it thematically, and there's always a great amount of information available on funds and calls and grants on donor websites. And in terms of the second question, yes, that's very topical. I think Mr. Keith highlighted it up top. Is I think we all have to get much more creative about how we deploy and access capital. And there's a growing number of platforms, programs, and project developers that exist to improve voluntary carbon market participation. So carbon finance is a growing area. But within that, I would also say that from the buy side, there is a growing need or interest in high quality projects that can create more impact than just carbon removal and avoidance. So many are increasingly looking for projects that advance women's economic empowerment, biodiversity net gains, and are quite open about what type of projects they look to fund. So there, it's a rapidly advancing industry in itself. But there, my advice would be look for either a project developer or a platform who can essentially support what's called protocol stacking. So protocol stacking is there's different protocols for measuring, monitoring, and quantifying impact, be it in the carbon space, but also beyond. So many projects are now stacking them to say, this is the impact that this project will have on carbon removals in the case of a nature-based reforestation solution or biochar, for example. Then on top of that, we are also having this impact on biodiversity net gain, and in terms of including ex-community members, we are also having this impact in a sort of social thematic area. So there are specialist organizations out there that will help you kind of stack the protocols and then evaluate sort of what that impact could be, like a feasibility assessment, and then quantify what that could mean in terms of on the voluntary carbon market, but also compliance now because there is convergence. So a great question, but I would again there direct direct you towards an organization that can help you protocol stack, because it sounds like there's a lot, especially when you include like regenerative agriculture as well. I mean, for transparency, we sort of on the project with Davis and Shirtliff, we are working on a carbon avoidance asset, because solar water pumps displace, for some of the customer base, diesel and petrol pumps. So we are quantifying it. We are in the position, because we have IoT technologies embedded on device, we're able to have a direct link with the meter, and that data can directly be sent to a carbon platform that monitors device usage, submits it through a protocol which measures and quantifies how much utilization has happened on device, and then how much diesel would have been offset or displaced by use of the pump. So there are specialist outfits out there. And again, there's a lot of different protocols, so I would recommend speaking to one of them and just understanding what options there are there. I hope that's answered both questions, but I'll have a look at the chat in case not.
No problem. I think Tilak, I'll direct you to the chat. So we have 15 minutes left. So I just want to quickly ask Brian and Josephat 2 questions from the audience, and I ask that you keep it short, so that we can have our parting shots from each of you. So Brian, there's some interesting questions that have come your way. The first is from Kyle. Just 1 second. Let me just pull it out. Kyle Fletcher. Is there significant demand for longer term support services, and what percentage of customers pay for this? That's the first one. Then we have a question from Chamia Mutuku asking which crop value chains have demonstrated the highest success potential for the PEGO model. And then related closely to the first question from George Ralak, is there a warranty for products purchased via PEGO? If so, at what point does it start counting? At the point of purchase, after completion of payment, which is a fair question. So over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, June. So I just responded to John, to Kyle, that yes, there's been a lot of interest in customers asking, so what happens after I finish paying? Because the thing in the field out there is that customers have been probably felt like they were left alone after they finished paying. So the first question they ask you is, so I'm going to pay after 2 years, for 2 years. And then we tell them that the warranty, even before we decided on the 2 years and 3 years, we have our warranty standard for solar water pumps is 2 years. So the customer would ask, so what happens after 2 years? You leave me alone to struggle on my own with a pump that's not working? And so we have fronted this idea of them remaining on the support framework by just paying a slightly minimal fee, to keep themselves on the support framework, and customers have expressed interest in doing that. We haven't had any customers cross that bar before, because we just started the project a little 2.5 years ago, but most customers have expressed interest in the comfortability that they should know that even after they've finished paying for the solution, they'll still be able to get support. So yes, I've also mentioned warranty. Yes, there's warranty, and this warranty begins from the point of installation when the item has been installed at site, because that is where our support starts. So the warranty will be given from the very beginning. And Davis and Shirtliff offers a tiered warranty in the sense that maybe after the first 2 years, we are able to, for example, replace the pump completely if it fails on warranty terms. And in the third year, we are able to offer warranty, but maybe to a certain percentage, and that helps to ensure that customers are confident about the product that we offer them, and they also take care of it better. So the other question you asked, sorry, I don't know if
which product or which crop has shown promise, which crop value chain has the highest success potential eco model?
So most of the clients we've been selling to work in the horticultural value chains, which more or less have a shorter plan to harvest timeline. And what this does, it's able to give the customers much more revenue cycles within the year. So you will find that those customers succeed more than customers who are doing other things that probably take 5 months or 6 months to plant. But we have seen a lot of success in farmers telling us that I have taken my kills to the market, I've harvested tomatoes, and I've been able to make payment for that. So we've seen that succeed, especially with customers that are doing those kind of horticultural crops. We've also seen some clients doing things like avocado and oranges, and so those clients inherently they have to pick some of the bigger pumps because the plants require much more water. But we've not had a huge sample for that. But where I see a lot of success happening is on the horticultural crops or value chain.
Yeah, and I hope people have had that as they try and deploy this solution. All right. So to Josephat, one last question for you before I ask all the panelists to give their parting shot. So as a development practitioner, what role do you think development entities can play in supporting farmers to secure finance for their inputs and equipment without fostering dependencies? I think we've mentioned that there's that dependency syndrome that sometimes development partners, bring about by giving out free equipment. And as you can see that this model is trying to support a company to grow. So what advice would you give development practitioners who are maybe trying to support such initiatives?
Yeah, thank you so much, June, for the very good question. Allow me to make a comment to what Brian was responding to in terms of the value chains. As we support the smallholder farmers, our focus is majorly to encourage them to pursue high-value short-term crops, especially in our context, because I have mentioned the water scarcity. Therefore, if they are in a position to explore crops that are high value and do not take long, then they'll be in a position to reap in terms of yields and even in terms of market. Then that can give them an edge in terms of meeting their obligations, in terms of remitting their installments, and of course now expanding their investments. So initially you can find farmers doing tomatoes, onions, and such for purposes of ensuring that they're able to generate enough proceeds. Now, in terms of development partners, I think for me, I will encourage working with different private sector players for purposes of ensuring that we are not interfering with natural forces within the market. I know traditionally, in the spirit of trying to see and pursue resilience amongst our communities, our understanding maybe was to come on board and support build assets for these communities. But in the long run, it doesn't really serve the purpose. So I think for us, as development partners, we must find a way to leverage private sector opportunities and innovations for purpose of ensuring that we are really supporting the communities and also supporting to ensure that the communities are really uptaking these innovations. And I know in terms of facilitating the different actors in the market ecosystem, then as development partners, it can be a good opportunity. And even in terms of expanded reach, like for us in this particular model, we have used around 300,000, for instance, in our first phase. And you can imagine the investments by the farmers of up to around 1.3 million. So it is really remarkable. So I will encourage that we go towards the private sector development. Again, in terms of our farmers, I know a lot of our farmers are doing subsistence production. So we also must encourage our farmers to do commercial agri activities. Because when they know they are in business, their focus at the end of the day is to make profits. So they will be doing all that it matters for them to enhance their production. And therefore, their investments in different technologies, different innovations becomes easier for them to really absorb. So we need to ensure that we are also shifting our farmers towards commercial perspective. Last but not least is also to look at the various linkages. Yes, we want to see farmers adopting these new technologies, best practices, climate smart. Now, when they their production is enhanced, what will happen to the market? So we also must look at that the aspects of end-to-end services for our farmers, that they can be able to benefit from the start of the chain to the end, for purpose of ensuring that they can be self-propelled in their various activities. Yeah, I don't know what I've answered exhaustively. Over to you, June.
I think you've touched on salient points, and I think that's useful as a starting point. Thank you so much, Josephat. Questions are still coming in on the chat, so I will add the panelists to just go look at them. Though, however, for the interest of time, I would request each of the panelists in 1 minute to give us a parting shot, something that we can take home on the importance of this, on the importance of ensuring that smallholder farmers have access to finance for inputs, for equipment, for solar-powered irrigation pumps, so that we can drive the economic fortunes of Africa forward. So I'll start with Brian, I'll go to Tilak, and then I'll end with Josephat before we revisit our poll and see what the audience said. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you very much, June, for the opportunity to say a parting shot. One thing I always say is that if I give a smallholder farmer a pump today, I would be very heartbroken if I come back a few years later and learn that they are still a smallholder farmer. I would want to provide these solutions to a smallholder farmer to allow them grow beyond what they're currently doing. If they're doing half an acre today, I'd be very proud to see them doing 2 acres or 3 acres, and so that they're able to grow and be able to adopt different technologies, different mechanisms, take more kids to school, live a better life than they were living before, before they got the solution. So I think all effort needs to be put into ensuring that, number one, there's access for people, access to these solutions for farmers who would not be able to access these solutions without the support of these financing mechanisms. And number two, ensuring that there's sustainable support to them, because then what that means is that if they are not able to get that support, then they are not able to get enough funds to pay back the solution. So because if the pumps don't work, they don't irrigate. If they don't irrigate, they don't get the money. And one last bit is what, for example, Raymond has asked in the chat. For example, a farmer that has been paying very, very well, and it gets to a point where they're at a standstill. They're just about to harvest. Locusts come and eat all their plants, eat all their maize. What do they do? And one thing I would say is that we are employing an empathetic credit kind of thing, a kind of model, whereby we are able to give them some moratorium of some time, or like a grace period when they don't have the money to continue using the solution, or and then be able to come back when they're back to their footing. And of course, we are working to see how we can work with partners to provide a more all-round support for the farmer, for them to be able to get access to other services. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much, Brian. Over to you, Tilak.
Thanks, June. Thanks, Brian. I won't be able to put it more eloquently than Brian just has, and I don't think anyone sort of on this call. Yeah, I think everyone appreciates the scale as well of the solutions that are required. I would just maybe from my perspective say, just as quickly as technology is advancing, and there's so many innovations in that space that we can leverage, I think similarly sort of creativity and innovation around financing mechanisms as well, which doesn't get the same light of day as AI and advances in technologies like that. But I think both sort of are hand in glove part of the solution that we need to address the problem at scale. So I would encourage, and I think we would all benefit from creativity across the board.
All right, creativity and financial mechanisms that we have taken note of. Thank you, Tilak. Josephat, what would you like to leave us with?
Thank you so much, June. They say numbers are loud. And when you're doing background information, you mentioned that over 80% of the agricultural output is because of these smallholder farmers. So it tells you the importance and the kind of investments that we need to prioritize to support our smallholder farmers. Additionally, when you look at the average cost of operation that has been reduced because of solar power irrigation solutions, like in Isiolo, an average of 70% reduction in cost, then that tells you that we must continue to strengthen farmer-centric models and innovations that will continue to steer the farming activities and continue to motivate our farmers towards building resilient livelihoods and, of course, their incomes for the households. So it's a call for all of us to see the entire value chain holistically and support in terms of ensuring that we have end-to-end services for all our farmers. Thank you.
All right, and so we're actually almost at the close. We have 2 minutes to the end of the webinar. I would just like to try and summarize a theme that has been repeating itself, especially from the panelists and even the question. What I'm hearing is that PAYGO is an ecosystem, it's a universe. And so yes, it is a financial solution with a technological aspect, but there are so many other things that need to be going on to get it to work well. And this is where development practitioners, and I feel like bulk of the audiences that can come in to have that catalytic push, for example, for the trainings, to bring in creativity in the financial models, to provide that catalytic support for subsidizing finance or supporting entities like Forward Digital and Davis to, do more R&D, and even what Josephat has said about end-to-end support. These are the gaps that development partners can fill for this model to work and for smallholder farmers to be taken to the next level. And so then we need to think about it quite holistically. Now, we are at the tail end, and I would like to revisit the results of the poll that we took earlier. So maybe we can see what several members of the audience thought. I see that there was a slight bias here. It seems that equipment leading and pay-as-you-go models took the day. I feel like that's because of the current discussion that we have, but also people feel very strongly about village savings and loan associations. I think that's the second highest. Then we have farmer cooperatives and producer organizations, which follows, along with blended finance and impact investment. But what I can see is that you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach. All of these instruments are useful in different contexts. I think it would be useful to contextualize these instruments and to use them accordingly, but also to just keep in mind that they're there and they can be used to move forward smallholder farmers. So thank you so much for participating in that. So we are at the top of the hour. If you want more information from any of the people on the panel or the organizing team or MWA, please just take a picture of the screen. All our email details are there. You can reach out to these individuals to talk to them directly, to learn more about the solution, or even just to learn more about the financing ecosystem. Tilak was talking about the protocol system. Maybe people want to know a bit more about that. If you want to learn about MWA International, you can talk to Keith Wright and Audrey Caprio and just direct your questions to them. So thank you so much for making time to be with us. We really, really hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we really, really also hope that you learned a lot. We'll be sharing the recording of the webinar with you, and you can circulate this to anyone who missed it in case they want to learn. And yes, let's keep on talking, and also let's keep on learning. One last thing is that MWA will also be having webinars throughout the year. So please be on the lookout for that and please participate. Thank you so much and have a good evening, a good afternoon, and a good day.